To write the equation of this function, we need to start by analyzing it and figuring out everything I know about it so that I can piece it together to write my equation. So what I notice right away is they tell me that this is going to be a cosine function. I may also know that because my graph is not starting from the midline, it's starting from the higher low end. So that's an indication it's cosine. One thing I'm noticing too about this graph is that not only is it starting not only is it not starting from the midline, it's starting from the minimum value, which is an indication that this graph has it's not only a cosine, but it's also been reflected. Normally cosine starts from the high end and drops. This one starts from the low end and increases. So we have a reflected graph. All right, so let's see what else I know. Well, we've mentioned the midline, so maybe I want to make a note about that. I can see the midline was drawn in for me, and it's at 4. So my entire graph has been moved up 4. So again, that'll come into play when I write my equation. Using the midline, I suppose the next apparent thing to find would be to find the amplitude of the graph. The amplitude is always going to go from the midline to the high end of the graph, and I can see that this graph goes from 4 to 7. So my amplitude must be 3. Okay, so I already know a ton of things about this graph, which will help me write the equation. One other thing I'm going to need to know, though, it has to do with the period of the graph. This time, there's more than one period showing, and so like we've done before, I kind of want to just isolate where a single period is, because that's all I really need. Well, to go from this low point to this low point will be a complete cycle of the graph. We go from low to high back to low. So I guess what I want to kind of block off is just this portion of the graph over here. This is another period of the graph, so that's not really going to affect anything. So there's one period, and I can see that they're telling me that that's too high. Well, I'm going to make a note of that, but recall in your formula, we don't need the period, we need the b value. And so what we've done before is we said, well, let's take the period and set that equal to our formula, which is 2 pi divided by b. And again, we've looked at that in other videos if you want to go back and try one of those. So if I put this over 1, I can see that, well, if the tops already match up, then the bottoms have to match up. So b must be 1, or you can do some cross multiplying and see that b does work out to be 1. So I believe with all of that analysis done, I believe we have enough to actually go and write our equation of this. So remember, we always want to start an equation with an equal sign, so either f of x equals or y equals or something along those lines. And we'll start with our amplitude. Our amplitude was 3. But then recall, we identified this graph as being reflected because it started from the minimum and went up from there. So it's actually a negative 3. We know it's a cosine, it says so, and we've identified the fact that it's a cosine. Next up, I need the b value. Well, we found that to be 1, so I'll include a 1 there. And then don't forget the x. Some people forgot about the x when they did these problems. And I'd recommend you put that all in parentheses. I don't know that you need to, but I would recommend you just put that in parentheses. And then the last part of this I need will be the fact that, well, the midline's been moved up 4, so my equation will end with a plus 4. And so all of these pieces together will identify this equation. This will be the equation of the graph that we're taking a look at.